I never thought one sentence could shatter everything. We were sitting there, at that party, surrounded by faces I didn't know, people talking about their vacations, their promotions, their successes. It wasn't exactly my scene, but my wife, Clarissa, seemed to be thriving. Of course she was. She always did. The life of the party, charming everyone around her with that laugh of hers, the one that could light up a room. I was used to it. But tonight was different. Tonight, the cracks in our life together were clearer than ever. I hadn't planned on saying anything. I was just sipping my drink, trying to blend into the background as usual, when I overheard her laughing a little too loudly, I thought, at something one of her coworkers had said. He wasn't even that funny. I didn't say anything, but the knot in my stomach grew tighter. For weeks now, I'd been feeling the distance between us widen. I didn't want to admit it, but I could see it in the way she glanced at her phone more than at me, the way she shrugged me off when I tried to talk to her. I swallowed hard, took a deep breath, and decided I was done being the passive husband. If something had changed, I was going to ask about it. No more waiting for the other shoe to drop. I walked over to Clarissa, trying to ignore the quiet buzz of anxiety in my chest. I had to know. I had to ask. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual as I approached her at the drink table. She turned and smiled at me, that familiar, dazzling smile. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it was a little too perfect, a little too rehearsed. "Hey, babe, how's it going?" she asked, her eyes lighting up when she saw me. But there was something off in the way she said it, like she wasn't really interested in my answer. I hesitated, then asked, "How long has it been exactly? Since we've been together, I mean." She raised an eyebrow, clearly thrown by the question. "What do you mean? You know it's been, what, 14 years? I nodded, but then I said, "No, it hasn't. It's been 14 years and 5 months. Our wedding anniversary was in March. Remember?" She paused, her face freezing for just a fraction of a second before she let out a small laugh, brushing off the detail like it didn't matter. "Alan, it's just a number. I'm not counting the months," she said, her voice light. But the way she said it, the way she avoided looking me in the eye, it felt wrong. I smiled, a tight smile. "It matters to me," I replied. But deep down, I knew it wasn't just the months that bothered me. It wasn't about anniversaries or dates. It was the feeling that she wasn't even trying to remember, that I was just background noise in her life. Then, as if the universe was sending me a sign, she looked away, her attention drifting back to the crowd. And for a moment, I felt invisible. Clarissa wasn't the same woman I had married. The woman who used to hold my hand when we walked into a room together, who used to laugh with me, not just at me. The woman who once whispered secrets in my ear late at night, secrets that made me feel important. But now, I was just another accessory, a man who tagged along beside her as she flitted from person to person, basking in their attention. I didn't say anything for a long time. I didn't know what to say. Maybe I wasn't ready for the truth. Or maybe I was too afraid that if I asked the wrong questions, everything would fall apart. But standing there, watching her smile at someone else, watching her make everyone else feel like they were the most important person in the room, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I wasn't even in the equation anymore. The moment she laughed at something else, a soft laugh that didn't reach her eyes, I finally snapped. I didn't yell. I didn't throw a fit. I simply turned to her, and I said, "It's been 6 months, hasn't it?" She blinked at me, momentarily confused, but then her eyes flashed with something I couldn't quite place. "What are you talking about?" she asked, voice defensive now, like she knew exactly where I was going. "6 months ago," I said, my voice steady, but with a bitterness I couldn't hide. "6 months ago, you started pulling away from me. You stopped caring. And now here we are. Just two strangers pretending everything's fine." She didn't answer right away. Her smile faded, replaced by a look I hadn't seen in years. Guilt? Regret? Maybe both. But before she could say anything, I turned away. There was no need to explain. No need to dig any deeper into the lie we'd been living. But as I walked away, I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just a bump in the road. This wasn't something we could fix with a simple apology or a weekend getaway. Our marriage had ended long before that night, and I was only just beginning to realize it. The following days were a blur, each one feeling longer than the last. I kept replaying that moment at the party in my mind, trying to figure out if I had done something wrong or if I was just overreacting. But deep down, I knew I wasn't. I knew the truth, even if I wasn't ready to fully accept it yet. Clarissa hadn't said a word to me about what I'd said at the party. Not that night, not the next morning. She acted like nothing had happened. She simply went about her day like she always did, as though the conversation between us hadn't just cracked open a door to something much bigger. For a week, I kept my distance, letting her go through the motions of her life while I tried to gather my thoughts. I still couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. There was a strange tension in the air, like we were both walking on eggshells, unsure of what to do next. I tried to talk to her again a few days later, but she just gave me one-word answers, never meeting my eyes. I had no idea what was going on in her head, and frankly, I didn't want to know. I had asked her about it, but the response I got was always the same. "I'm fine." She said it so many times that it started to sound robotic. It was when I saw her phone light up one night, when she was sitting on the couch, pretending to watch TV, that I finally snapped. I had never been the type of person to snoop, but I couldn't help it. I was drowning in questions, and every little thing felt like it was part of the puzzle I had to solve. The message on her screen wasn't from her mother or one of her friends. It was from Matt. That name again. The same guy I had seen her texting late at night when I wasn't looking. It was always the same, short messages, casual chats. But I had a feeling those weren't just friendly exchanges. I waited for a moment when she wasn't looking and unlocked her phone. The messages were harmless at first, talking about something trivial from work, but then came a line that hit me like a slap across the face. "Can't wait to see you later tonight. Don't tell Alan." My heart stopped. The words blurred in front of my eyes, but I couldn't look away. I read the message over and over, trying to make sense of it. "Don't tell Alan." I don't know why, but I felt like I was choking. The air around me felt thick, suffocating. My mind raced, asking myself why I hadn't seen this coming. Had I been that blind? Had I really been living in denial for months, pretending that everything was fine when it was so clearly falling apart? Clarissa came back into the room, snapping me out of my trance. When she saw me holding her phone, her eyes went wide, and she immediately tried to snatch it away. "Alan, what are you doing?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. She tried to sound calm, but I could hear the panic in her voice. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My mouth was dry, and all I could think about was the message. "Give me my phone," she demanded, her tone shifting from panic to anger in an instant. I finally spoke. "So Matt, huh? How long has this been going on, Clarissa?" The words came out almost too easily. It was like I had been rehearsing this conversation in my head for days. Her face paled. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I could see her struggling, trying to figure out how to lie her way out of it, but it was too late. The truth was already hanging in the air between us. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was just tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of waiting for her to come to her senses. Tired of trying to keep everything together while she was already gone. "Don't make me look like the fool, Clarissa," I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. "Just tell me the truth. How long has this been going on?" She finally sat down next to me, her shoulders slumped, her hands shaking slightly. I could tell she was trying to come up with an excuse, but nothing would make this right. Nothing could undo what had been said. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I never meant for it to get this far." I felt a pang of disbelief. "Never meant for it to get this far?" I repeated, almost laughing at how ridiculous it sounded. "Clarissa, you've been seeing him behind my back. You've been lying to me, pretending like everything was fine. How much farther could it possibly go?" "I don't know," she said, her eyes filling with tears now. I don't know how to fix it. I didn't want to hurt you." Her words fell flat, like an empty apology that had no meaning anymore. She had hurt me more than she could ever understand. But I wasn't looking for her to fix it. I was past the point of trying to make it work. "You've already broken it," I said, my voice cold. "And there's no going back." She sat there, silently crying, but I couldn't bring myself to comfort her. Not after everything. Not after seeing her message, after realizing the truth that I had refused to face for so long. I stood up, my legs shaky, and walked toward the door. "I'm done," I said simply, without turning back. "I can't do this anymore." And as I walked out the door, leaving her alone with her regrets and her lies, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Freedom. The days after I left Clarissa were the quietest I had ever known. The silence in my apartment felt suffocating, like I was walking through a fog that I couldn't escape. I kept thinking back to that moment. The moment when I walked out on her, on everything we had built together. I thought I would feel some kind of relief, a weight lifted from my chest, but all I felt was numbness. Maybe it was because I had been living with this truth for so long, just ignoring the signs, hoping that things would get better. But now that I knew the truth, it felt worse than anything I could have imagined. It was a strange kind of loneliness. The kind where you're not alone, but you feel more isolated than ever before. I started to go through the motions of daily life. Eating, working, sleeping, but everything felt off. Nothing had meaning anymore. The woman I had loved for so many years was no longer the same person. And what's worse, I wasn't even sure if she had ever truly loved me. I had been in denial for too long, ignoring the signs because I didn't want to face the truth. But now it was clear as day. Our marriage had been over long before I'd walked out that night. I had been holding on to something that wasn't there anymore, desperately clinging to the past, even as everything around me fell apart. A week passed, then two. And then, one afternoon, I got a message from Clarissa. It wasn't anything special at first, just a simple text that said, "Can we talk?" But something about it made my heart skip a beat. I hadn't heard from her in days, and even though I had walked away, I still found myself wondering if I was making a mistake. I wasn't ready to forgive her, but the thought of seeing her again, of hearing her voice, pulled me in like a magnet. So, despite myself, I replied, "Sure. When?" "Tonight, maybe," she wrote back. I need to see you." I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to sit face to face with the woman who had betrayed me, who had shattered everything I thought I knew about love and trust. But at the same time, I knew this wasn't just about her. It was about me, too. About facing the things I had been avoiding for so long. So I agreed. That night, I met her at a small coffee shop, a place we used to go when we were still happy. The memory of it felt almost painful now. I walked in, scanning the room until I saw her sitting by the window, looking smaller than I remembered. Her eyes were red, as if she had been crying, and her hands were clasped tightly in front of her, as if she was afraid to move. When she saw me, she stood up, her face filled with a mixture of hope and fear. I couldn't help but feel a twinge of guilt as she looked at me, but I quickly buried it. I wasn't here to fix things, and I wasn't here to let her off the hook. I took a seat across from her, my gaze fixed on the table. There was a long silence before she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Alan, I've been thinking about everything. About us? And I know I've made mistakes," she said, her eyes searching mine for something. Anything that would tell her I was willing to forgive her. But I didn't give her that. I couldn't. "You're right about that," I said, my voice flat, not betraying any emotion. "But I'm not here to listen to your excuses, Clarissa. You don't get to do this anymore. You don't get to tear me apart and then expect me to just forgive you." She flinched at my words, and I could see the tears welling up in her eyes, but I wasn't moved by them. I wasn't moved by the sorrow in her face or the way she was looking at me like I was the only thing that mattered. Because I knew what had happened. I knew what she had done, and no amount of tears was going to change that. "I never wanted to hurt you," she said, her voice cracking. "I never wanted any of this. I'm so sorry, Alan. I don't know how we got here, but I want to fix it. I want to make it right." But I wasn't listening anymore. I had heard all of this before. The apologies, the promises, the excuses. It wasn't enough. "You think you can just fix it with a few words? A few tears? It doesn't work like that," I said, my voice rising slightly. I took a deep breath and leaned in, looking her straight in the eye. "You made your choices, Clarissa. You chose him. And now you have to live with that." She shook her head, the tears falling freely now. "I didn't choose him. I chose you. But somewhere along the way, I lost myself. I lost who I was, and I didn't know how to come back." Her words were hollow, and I saw through them. She wasn't the woman I had married anymore. She had changed, and no matter how many times she said she was sorry, it didn't matter. I had lost her a long time ago. "I'm not here to fix you, Clarissa," I said quietly, my voice cold. "I'm here to move on, and I suggest you do the same." The silence that followed was thick, heavy. Neither of us spoke for a long time. I could hear the sound of her breathing, the faint tremor in it, but I didn't say anything else. I couldn't. Finally, she stood up, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "I guess this is goodbye, then," she whispered. "For good." I nodded. "For good." And with that, she left. I sat there for a long time, staring at the empty chair across from me. For the first time in weeks, I felt Nothing. No anger, no sadness, just emptiness. It was over. I had done what I needed to do. But even as I walked out of that coffee shop and into the night, I couldn't help but wonder if I had made the right choice, and whether I would ever be able to fully heal from the mess we had created together. After that night, things started to settle into a strange, uncomfortable rhythm. The initial rush of relief from leaving Clarissa faded into something else, something more unsettling. I thought that once the decision had been made, the hard part would be over. But in reality, it had just begun. I spent the next few weeks just trying to get back to normal, if that was even possible. Work, home, sleep. Everything was mechanical. I'd never realized how much of myself I had invested into a relationship that was now gone, how much of my identity had been tied to someone who wasn't even the person I thought she was. The days seemed longer now, filled with the echoes of what could have been. I tried to keep busy, but the silence of the apartment made it harder and harder to pretend that I wasn't alone. I didn't hear from Clarissa after that coffee shop meeting. She respected the space I had asked for, but something about the way she left that night made me uneasy. It was almost like she had given up, but there was something in her eyes that made me wonder if she was going to come back, if she was going to try one more time. But I never got that call, and honestly, I wasn't sure I wanted it. Instead, I got a call from an unexpected source. It was late on a Thursday evening when my phone rang. I was sprawled out on the couch, scrolling through endless, mindless articles, trying to shut off my brain. I didn't recognize the number, but something in the back of my mind told me to pick up. "Hello," I said, my voice hoarse from lack of conversation. "Alan." A voice I didn't recognize responded, sharp and clear. "This is Matt." My heart dropped. "Matt," I repeated, barely able to get the name out. "What do you want?" "Clarissa's been calling me nonstop," he said. "She told me what happened with you two. And, well, I thought you'd want to know something." My blood ran cold. I didn't want to know anything. I didn't need to hear it. But I couldn't hang up either. I was frozen in place, waiting for him to finish whatever it was he had to say. "I don't know what you two had going on, man, but she's a mess," he continued, sounding almost bored, like he was talking about a bad TV show. "She's been showing up at my place, drunk, crying about everything. She doesn't want to talk to you, but she's making it pretty clear she's not done with you." A lump formed in my throat. I didn't know if I should feel angry, sad, or just plain tired. "What do you mean, she's not done with me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even, trying to hold on to whatever shred of composure I had left. "Look, man, I didn't ask for any of this," he replied. "But Clarissa's been telling me a lot of things I don't think you know about. She says she wants to fix things, but she's too afraid to reach out to you. It's a mess, and I don't want to get involved, but you need to know, she's not giving up. Not yet." The words hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't the fact that Clarissa wasn't giving up on me. It was the realization that she was still playing the same games. She hadn't changed. She hadn't learned anything. "I'm not interested in whatever games she's playing, Matt," I said, the anger starting to creep into my voice. "Tell her to leave me out of it." But even as I said that, I knew it wasn't that simple. After hanging up, I sat in the silence of my apartment, the weight of the conversation sinking in. Clarissa wasn't done with me, but that didn't mean I was going to play along. I was tired of being the man who always forgave, always believed, always waited for something that would never come. This time, I wasn't going to be the one waiting. The next few days were just as quiet. I went to work, went home, and sat in the quiet of the apartment, trying to find some semblance of peace. But the thought of Clarissa, of her still trying to hold on to something that was long gone, kept gnawing at me. Then, a week after that conversation with Matt, I came home to find a letter slipped under my door. It was from Clarissa. I don't know why I even opened it. I could have thrown it away, ignored it, but something inside me told me to read it. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was the tiny sliver of hope I still had that things could somehow get better. I didn't know anymore. The letter was short. Too short. "Alan, I'm sorry for everything. I never meant to hurt you. I wish I could take back everything, all the pain I caused. But I can't. I just want you to know that I will always love you, no matter what. If you ever change your mind, if you ever decide to give us a second chance, I'll be here. Always." I stared at the letter for a long time. I didn't know what to feel. I didn't know if it was the last straw or the beginning of another painful chapter. But one thing was clear, I wasn't going back. Clarissa had made her choices. She had betrayed me in ways that I couldn't forget. And no matter how much she apologized, no matter how many times she tried to reach out, I knew I couldn't let her back into my life. Not this time. I took the letter, folded it up, and put it in the trash. And that was it. There would be no more second chances. No more waiting for her to change. No more lies. I was done. I thought I had moved on. I truly did. But sometimes, the past doesn't just let go. It holds on like a shadow, following you no matter how far you try to run. A few weeks had passed since I threw Clarissa's letter away. I thought that, finally, I was free. I told myself that I was done with the pain, done with the betrayal, that I had closed that chapter and locked it away for good. But even as I moved through my life, there was something lingering. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't regret. It was just emptiness. My friends started to notice. They'd call, invite me out, try to get me to open up, but I didn't want to talk about it anymore. I was tired of explaining myself, tired of reliving the same story. I had already given them the rundown. How Clarissa and I had been drifting apart for months, how I found out about her affair, how I left. Simple, clean. No emotions, just facts. But it wasn't that simple, was it? I went through the motions, dinner with friends, the occasional happy hour, work, errands. Everything felt like it was happening to someone else. I was physically there, but mentally, I was somewhere else entirely. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I kept hearing Clarissa's voice from that night. I'll always love you. Her words haunted me, not because I wanted to go back to her, but because they reminded me of the person I used to be. A person who believed in love, in second chances, in the idea that if you held on long enough, things would get better. I wasn't that person anymore. But that's the problem, isn't it? Once you stop believing in love, once you've been burned so many times, it becomes hard to trust anyone. It becomes hard to believe in anything. And when that happens, you start to wonder if there's anyone out there worth trusting again. I hadn't expected to see her again. Not like this. Not like the way she showed up at my door, looking like a stranger I once knew but couldn't recognize anymore. It was just past midnight when I heard a knock. At first, I thought I was imagining things, but then the knock came again, more insistent this time. My heart skipped a beat, and I rushed to the door, hoping it wasn't someone who was just drunk and lost. But when I opened the door, my breath caught in my throat. There she was, Clarissa. She stood on my doorstep, her eyes red, her hair messy like she hadn't slept in days. She was shaking, and even in the cold night air, her face looked like she'd been crying for hours. My first instinct was to close the door, to shut her out and forget about the past. But I couldn't. Alan, she whispered, her voice trembling. I need to talk to you. Please. I stood there, frozen, not knowing what to say. I could have slammed the door. I could have told her to leave and never come back. But something in the way she was standing there, broken and vulnerable, stopped me. Something about the way she looked at me, like she was pleading for something that was slipping through her fingers, made me want to listen. I stepped aside, letting her in without a word. The silence between us was deafening. I didn't want to look at her, but I couldn't stop myself. She had been my world once, and even though everything had fallen apart, there was a part of me that still wanted to believe in us. I don't know why I came here, she said after a long pause, her voice shaky as she took a seat on the couch. She didn't look at me. I couldn't stay away. I've tried to move on, Alan, but I can't. Not without knowing if there's even a chance for us. And I don't know if there is, but I have to know. I have to know if we're really over. I didn't speak at first. What could I say? After everything, how could I possibly give her that answer? She had left me broken. She had betrayed me in the worst possible way, and now she was standing in my living room, asking me if we were really over. I'm not the same person I was, Clarissa, I said, my voice hoarse. And neither are you. You didn't just hurt me. You hurt us. You broke everything we had. Her head dropped, and I could see the shame in her posture. She didn't speak for a long time, and for a moment, I thought she might leave again, just like she had before. But then she looked up at me, her eyes full of desperation. I know I can't take back what I did, she said quietly, almost pleading. But please, Alan, tell me if there's even the smallest part of you that can forgive me. I don't want to lose you. Not like this. I felt my chest tighten. There was a part of me, just a small part, that wanted to forgive her, wanted to believe that people could change, that maybe she had learned from her mistakes. But the truth was, I wasn't sure if I could ever forget. You can't just undo the past, Clarissa. I said softly, my voice cracking slightly. It's not that simple. She didn't argue with me. Instead, she just sat there, tears running down her cheeks. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what she expected me to do. I'm not asking for us to go back to how we were, she said through her tears. I know that's impossible. But can you at least tell me if you can ever forgive me? Can you ever trust me again? The room was quiet, too quiet. I wanted to say something. I wanted to give her an answer, but all I could do was look at her and wonder if forgiveness was something that could even be given after everything she had done. The truth was, I didn't know. And maybe that was the hardest part. The silence between us stretched longer than I ever thought possible. Clarissa sat there, waiting for an answer, her eyes filled with hope and regret, like she was expecting me to make the impossible decision for both of us. I wasn't sure if I could bear the weight of it. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words felt trapped in my chest. She had asked for forgiveness, but what did that even mean anymore? Could I forgive her? Could I move past everything that had happened? We sat there in the living room, the soft hum of the city outside the window the only sound filling the space between us. I could feel the tension in the air, like it was about to snap at any moment. Clarissa was looking at me with those eyes, the same eyes I had fallen in love with all those years ago. But now they were clouded with guilt and fear, two things I had never associated with her before. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, I broke the silence. I don't know if I can forgive you, Clarissa, I said, my voice low and strained. I wasn't angry anymore, just tired. Tired of the back and forth, tired of the games. I had given her every chance to make things right, and now I was standing on the edge, looking down at what was left. I want to believe you. I want to believe that people can change, but how do I know this isn't just another one of your excuses? She winced at the words, but didn't argue. Instead, she wiped her tears away and nodded, as if she understood that I was still processing, still trying to make sense of everything that had happened. I can't change the past, she said softly. But I swear to you, Alan, I'm not that person anymore. I know I messed up. I hurt you in ways I can never take back. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes to show you that I'm different, if you'll give me that chance. Her words were like a double-edged sword. Part of me wanted to believe her. Maybe a part of me still loved her enough to want to give her another shot. But then I remembered the way things had ended. The lies, the betrayal, the feeling of being invisible in a marriage I thought was built on trust. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was broken. And I wasn't sure I could put the pieces back together again, no matter how hard I tried. You don't get it, do you? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. It's not about me forgiving you. It's about me finding a way to trust you again. And right now, I can't even trust myself to make the right decision. She looked down at her hands, her fingers twisting in her lap, and for a moment, I thought she was going to leave again. I thought she was going to give up and walk out the door, just like she had done so many times before. But she didn't. Instead, she stood up, walked over to the window, and stared out at the city lights. I don't expect things to be fixed overnight, she said, her voice trembling. I don't even expect you to welcome me back with open arms. But I need you to know something, Alan. I never stopped loving you. And I don't know what else to do, but I can't let you go without trying. Her words hung in the air, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of something that resembled hope. But hope was a dangerous thing. I had given my heart to someone who had broken it before, and I wasn't sure if I could survive the pain of it again. I stood up, walking over to her, standing beside her by the window. We both looked out at the same scene, but we were in entirely different places. I don't know what you want from me anymore, I said quietly, staring out into the night. But I can't pretend that I haven't been destroyed by what happened. I'm not the same person I was before all of this. And I don't know if I can ever be that person again. She turned to face me, her eyes searching mine as if she was trying to find some sign that I was still in there, still the man who had loved her with everything he had. I didn't have the answer for her, and I didn't think I ever would. I understand, she whispered. I just want you to know that I'm not asking you to forget. I'm asking you to see me for who I am now, not who I was. There it was, the same plea, the same desperate cry for redemption. And for a moment, I thought maybe I could forgive her. Maybe we could try to rebuild what had been destroyed. But then I thought about everything we had gone through, the lies, the secrecy, the countless times I had ignored the signs because I didn't want to face the truth. I don't know if I can do that, I said, shaking my head slowly. I'm not sure if I can ever see you the same way again. Her face fell. The tears started again, and I could see the weight of my words crashing down on her. But I wasn't ready to take it back. I wasn't ready to go back to the way things were, to put myself in a position where I could be hurt again. "I'm sorry, Clarissa," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "But I think it's time for both of us to move on." She didn't say anything after that. She didn't beg me to reconsider, didn't try to convince me that we could fix everything. She just nodded, as if she had already known what I was going to say. And then she left. That was the last time I saw her. It's funny how life has a way of throwing you curveballs when you least expect it. Just when you think you've made peace with your decisions, when you believe you've locked away the past for good, something comes along to test your resolve. For me, it came in the form of a phone call. It was a Friday evening, about 3 weeks after Clarissa left for good. The silence had become something I had grown accustomed to. It was comfortable, even. The apartment no longer felt like a cage, but a sanctuary where I could breathe again. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the constant pressure of pretending that everything was fine. I was able to look in the mirror and see someone who was starting to put the pieces of himself back together. I was moving on, slowly but surely. But then the phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but something in the back of my mind told me to pick up. Maybe it was the lingering curiosity about Clarissa, or maybe it was just that nagging feeling that something was about to change. "Hello," I answered, my voice still rough from a long day at work. "Alan." A woman's voice, soft but urgent. "It's Sarah. Sarah Jennings." My heart skipped a beat. Sarah? I hadn't spoken to her in years. She was an old friend from college, someone I hadn't even thought about in ages. "Sarah? What's going on?" I asked, trying to hide the shock in my voice. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could tell something was wrong. Something had shifted in her tone. "I need to tell you something, Alan," she said, her voice trembling. "Something important. It's about Clarissa." My chest tightened. I hadn't expected her name to come up. Not now, not ever again. I had told myself I was done with her, that I had moved on, but hearing her name still had a way of stirring things up in me. Feelings I wasn't ready to confront. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice steady despite the unease building in my stomach. It's bad, Alan," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Clarissa's been seeing someone else. It's been going on for months. The whole time you two were together, she was with him. She told me everything." I felt the floor fall out from under me. My mind raced as the pieces began to fall into place. Everything, the distance, the late nights, the lies, came rushing back in a flood. I had known, deep down, that something wasn't right. But hearing it confirmed, hearing it from someone else, felt like a punch to the gut. "Who is he?" I asked, barely able to get the words out. "I don't know much," Sarah replied. "But she's been sneaking around, Alan. She's been hiding it from everyone. And when she left you, she told me she was starting over, but it was all just a cover. She's been seeing him for a long time, probably longer than you know." I sat there in silence, the weight of her words sinking in. My hands were trembling, and I felt the cold rush of betrayal hit me all over again. But this time, it wasn't just about what Clarissa had done. It was about what I had missed, the signs I had ignored, the red flags I had convinced myself weren't important. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, trying to steady my breath. "Why now?" "Because," she said, her voice cracking, "I think you need to know the truth. I think you deserve to know the full story. Clarissa isn't just running from you, Alan. She's running from herself." The words stung, but they also made something inside me click. I wasn't the only one who had been lied to. Clarissa had been lying to herself, too. She had been hiding from the consequences of her actions, trying to outrun the guilt, the shame. And in doing so, she had dragged everyone else along for the ride. I didn't know what to say. What could I say? The woman I had loved, the woman I had spent years with, was gone. And in her place was someone I didn't recognize. Someone who had made choices that were beyond forgiveness. "I don't know what to do with this information, Sarah," I said, my voice hollow. "I thought I was moving on. I thought I was done with it all." "You are moving on," she said, her voice gentle. "But the past doesn't just disappear. It follows you, Alan. And you have to face it head on if you want to keep moving forward." I let her words sink in. She was right. I couldn't pretend like I had already healed. The past had caught up with me, and I wasn't sure how to deal with it. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let Clarissa's lies define me. I wasn't going to let her betrayal take away the chance I had at a a future that was mine to build. The call ended, and I sat in the quiet of my apartment, staring out the window at the city lights below. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had some clarity. Clarissa's actions didn't define me. Her choices didn't have to control my life. But there was still one question that lingered in my mind. Could I ever fully let go? Could I forgive her, even if it was just for myself? Or was the pain too deep, too raw, to ever heal completely? I didn't have the answer. Not yet. The days following that call from Sarah felt like they had stretched into months. My thoughts were a tangled mess of anger, confusion, and disbelief. Clarissa's betrayal, her lies, had shaken me to the core, but somehow, in the midst of it all, I found a strange sense of peace. I realized that while I couldn't undo the past, I had the power to shape my future. The weight that had been on my shoulders for so long, carrying the burden of Clarissa's betrayal, her secrets, the years of unresolved pain, began to lift. It wasn't immediate. It wasn't as simple as flipping a switch. But little by little, I started to heal. The void that had once felt suffocating began to shrink, and the world around me became a little clearer. I started to enjoy the quiet of my apartment. The silence that used to feel so heavy now felt like freedom. I was free. I focused on my work, reconnected with friends I had drifted away from, and even began to do things I had put off for years. Things that were just for me. I'd never realized how much I had sacrificed, how much of myself I had given away. But now I was taking it back. I was learning to live for myself again, not for anyone else's expectations or validation. The days turned into weeks, and then, one evening, as I was out for a walk, I ran into someone who changed everything. I was sitting at a park bench, just enjoying the cool breeze when I heard a familiar voice. "Alan, is that you?" I turned around and saw Sarah. Yes, Sarah, the one who had been there for me, the one who had been brutally honest when I needed it the most. We had talked a few times since that phone call, and although we had always kept it casual, something about that moment felt different. The way she smiled at me, the way her eyes met mine, I felt something stir inside me, a feeling I hadn't had in so long. "Hey, Sarah," I said, standing up and offering a smile that, for the first time in months, didn't feel forced. "What are you doing here?" "I was just passing by and thought I'd stop," she said, sitting beside me on the bench. "I've been meaning to ask you, how are you holding up?" The question took me off guard. People had asked me that before, but it felt different coming from her. There was no pity in her eyes, no judgment, just genuine concern. "I'm doing better," I said honestly. I've been learning a lot about myself lately." "I'm glad to hear that," she replied, her voice warm. "You've been through a lot, Alan. You deserve to find peace." And in that moment, I realized something. The pain, the heartache, everything I had gone through with Clarissa, it had shaped me. Yes, but it didn't define me. I didn't need to carry that burden anymore. I could move on. I could choose a future that was mine, without the past holding me back. And maybe, just maybe, there was room for something new. As we sat there, talking about life and everything in between, I felt something I hadn't in years: hope. Not just for the future, but for what was possible in the here and now. Sarah wasn't the woman I had once thought I'd end up with, but she was someone who saw me for who I was now, not who I used to be. And that felt good. It felt like a fresh start, like I had found my way back to myself. She wasn't asking me to be someone I wasn't. She was just offering me the chance to share the present, to take each moment as it came. As we stood up to leave, she gave me a smile that spoke volumes, a smile that said, "You're going to be okay." And for the first time in so long, I believed it. I didn't know what the future would hold. Maybe it would be with Sarah, or maybe it wouldn't. But for the first time, I didn't feel like I was walking through life with one foot in the past. I was living in the present, and that was enough. The past was behind me, and for the first time, I was truly free.